David, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay, David?
I can indeed, yes. Very well. How are you?
Really good, actually. Computer.
Good. You're looking well. It's always a good indicator. Well, not always, but
It may be because the camera's fuzzy, okay? Anyway, I think I got maybe 3 hours sleep, got up around 3:30 this morning, and I've been up ever since. Not like your 2 o'clock, but I was up at 3:30.
Well, the last couple of days have been 1:30, but it differs. It just depends on how much energy I'm feeling. You must be energized.
I've had a good run of about 3 or 4 days. That was pretty good. When do you go to bed?
Sorry?
When do you go to sleep?
Right. Usually I go to bed about 12, and then I'm up about 1:30 or 2:30 roughly. I don't need a great deal of sleep at all, but
There's
life's
some
exciting.
studies that say that's too little sleep.
They would do. They would do. Yes. I mean,
Hey,
a lot of
man.
us fast as well, but one of my friends does 30-day fasting and only drinks water maybe every fourth or fifth day or something like that, in small amounts. It's crazy. So I think in certain stages with meditation and the like, you can throw the rule book out. Just depends how much effort you put into a choice or whatever. Some people go a little too far, I think.
Well, there's a theory that I believe I've read that says sleep is required for your brain to, get rid of junk and garbage. So lack of sleep, I've heard, maybe makes that less effective. So I'm kind of still studying that one.
I actually experienced it. Years ago, I went on a camping trip with a friend, and we camped in a tent. And it turns out I didn't know this because I live alone. I snore pretty loud. And every time I snored, the person next to me would poke me and just to wake me up so I stopped snoring. And after about a week, I had lost so much sleep from being woken up every time I snored that I could experience the impairment in my ability to function. And I pointed out, I said, this loss of sleep is measurably disturbing my ability to, be aware and attend and process in a normal way.
I also snore reputedly quite loud, but it turns out that actually seemed to work out with one ex-girlfriend. She said that she, because of past traumas and pains and PTSD, has always had trouble sleeping. But with me, my snoring was actually soothing to her. So she actually got much better sleep because it was a regular, very periodic, very predictable, and it just pacified her. So
yeah, that's interesting.
That's what she said anyway, and it wasn't like just a couple of weeks. That was about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's easier for me to fall asleep if I turn on the clock radio and have BBC playing than if I just leave it off and try to fall asleep in the quiet. For some odd reason, having that that lovely BBC announcer's voice at a very low level just puts me to sleep instantly.
I got some videos for you to watch, Mary, in case you're looking for sleep.
Actually, yesterday I watched this podcast with this guy called Andrew Walker, and Matthew Walker, I think, and he's a sleep expert. He's written a book, become pretty famous, called Why We Sleep, and he says that like more than 99.9% of people should have between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. And apparently it's all kinds of problems that can accumulate over several years if you're significantly less than that. I mean, I have heard some, high-level meditators have said they need less sleep. Yeah. I've heard that. I'm a little bit skeptical. I mean, I've been doing a lot of meditation myself, and I certainly feel a lot worse if I've had like less than 6 hours sleep. just, and but who knows? I mean,
I tend to take over. I usually have about half an hour meditation on a morning, half an hour on a night. Usually before I go to sleep, and I set intentions. And if I feel tired through the day, I'll have 10 minutes. I'll just have a 10-minute sit in a quiet space, tune in, and it feels like I've had. The night before last, I said, I'm absolutely shattered. I need to sleep. It's been a very long day. We dug in earth that was like concrete. We dug about 40, 50 holes, three of us, for trees, and it was real hard going. And I sort of had a meditation, decided that I wanted to sleep until morning, till 6 o'clock. I woke up earlier than I usually do, feeling fully rested, thinking it was 6 o'clock in the morning, came down, did an hour's work, and looked at the clock, and it was 20 past 1. So I'd gotten up at 20 past 12, roughly. And I felt...
That happened to me last week.
Yeah, perfect. I felt perfect. I felt like I had a full night's sleep. And yesterday was one of my best days, and I had less. It's crazy. Yeah, there's different ways of absorbing energy. Sun gazing is great on a morning, on a night time. Usually, if I do it on a night time, on an evening, I cannot sleep at all. It just keeps me wide awake. So it's like having 20 coffees. It's crazy.
Well, if I were retired, and if I were not full on a social schedule of some kind, even with Zoom, it seems like it wouldn't really matter, when you sleep and when you do whatever you need to, right? Because I've been trying to break my work chunks of time into like 3-hour chunks. And then I take a break and eat or do something else or whatever, and then do another 3-hour chunk and eat. And I can do this around the clock. And like last night, I went to bed around midnight, maybe 11:30. Woke up at 3. I was just telling David Minimus at 3:30. So it was only like 4 hours. And I've been up ever since. And one of the previous nights, actually it was a Thursday night, I was up till 6. Yeah, so it was just last night. So one night prior, I was up till 6:30 in the morning because I had an 11 o'clock meeting and that I had to prepare for. And the previous day, I delivered something. It was Thursday morning. I delivered something at 4:30 in the morning, something that was weeks late, that I still had done at 4:30 in the morning. So each of these 3 nights, I've had anywhere from 4 to 6. No, usually around 3 to 4 hours. And yeah, that could definitely be affecting me. But right now, I'm feeling like I'm engaged. I'm ready to go. Some mornings I wake up and I say, I'm not really awake yet. You guys talk, let me figure things out. I don't feel like that right now, though. I actually have a whole diagram full of ideas that are like threads of conversation we've been collecting over a while. So there's a number of things to talk about. But would you guys like to optionally check in first? Okay, I'll check in, okay? Because I've been up for hours already, there was a post. I'm a member of the Stanford Class of 1980 group in Facebook. And it turns out that Condoleezza Rice is one of our class members. She graduated in 1980 as well. She ex-Secretary of State, So she issued a proclamation. It was a short proclamation, citing, she watched in horror as all this violence happened in Capitol building, et cetera, et cetera. And one of our members posted, well, that's nice, but, why did you let him go for so long without saying anything, So a member, an admin of this Stanford of 1980 group said, hey, let's not turn this political. Why don't we just keep this civil and just, social? And so there's a conversation there about, hey, this is class of 1980, and why are we running away from disagreement? Hey, Joel. So anyway, that point got brought up. So there's a clash right now between, hey, let's keep this civil versus, hey, let's just, address the issues, as they come up, including politics, especially this week. So anyway, I just wrote a post to that particular group saying, hey, if I get bounced out or if anybody else gets bounced out of that group, please join me. And I gave them this Zoom link, okay? So nobody's joined yet, but anyway, I just want to let you know that that happened in case anyone that you don't recognize shows up and says they're from Stanford, okay? Anyway, other than that, I've had actually a pretty fun run of about 3-4 days. Like I said, I delivered this thing on Thursday, had a good meeting yesterday, plan to be somewhat productive. Yeah, I mean, there's too much to talk about. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. That's my check-in.
I think this week, I have lots of avatars. I have these alter ego character names like Muppets that I use from time to time on the social networks. Whenever a particular issue comes around, I sort of bring up a particular Muppet character who sort of fits into that story. And one that I haven't used in a long time, I don't think anybody here even has heard me use it. I have a character named Mokita Syzygy. I'll write it down in a minute, but Mokita is a word, I think it's in a New Guinea language or something. And Mokita refers to something that everybody knows, but never talks about. The truth that everybody knows, but never mentions aloud. And it sort of corresponds to the elephant in the room, where nobody talks about it. Everybody can see the elephant in the room, but you never mention it. So you can think of Mokita as the name of that elephant. Here's the elephant whose name is Mokita, that we all know about and never mention. And then another word which comes from astronomy is, and it's an interesting word because it's got so many funny letters in it. There's a word syzygy, and syzygy is a conjunction of astronomical objects in a line. It's an alignment. And so I have a character named Mokita Syzygy, and I use this character to represent the voice of this phenomenon, this unusual alignment that everybody notices that something unusual is happening, but you don't talk about it out loud. And I think that's kind of where we are, trying to take things which are subliminal. Everybody's sort of noticing it, feeling it, worrying about it, but we're afraid to talk about it because it may annoy people, it may set people off, it may start a conflagration. And so we have this neurosis about having something present and we dare not mention it. Or else bad things will happen.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was
that's a
on
big
mute.
issue.
I was just amused myself, just trying to ask myself, is there anyone in this group that's afraid to bring something up, an elephant in the room? It's a weird question to ask in this room. Anyway, thanks, Barry, for your check-in. So I just noted the syzygy. I'll share the screen in a bit. Anybody else? Hey, Alex. Glenn?
Made me think about this expression, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I'm thinking, well, I can try to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, but if I've got to tell the whole truth, that might take some time. So there's maybe also sometimes things difficult to put words to, because where'd you begin and where'd you end? There's some of those as well. And of course, it's about whether we can talk about it in a way that's useful or that's helpful. So yeah, of course, it's never possible to talk about everything. There's certain physical limitations as well. Silence does have its advantages. That's what I found. Silence is golden. It's an expression. Certainly. Sometimes I feel there's some elephant in the room, but it's not really a room that's receptive to discussing it. And then silence seems most appropriate sometimes. Yeah, that just came up. Just as a little check-in, well, this theme of sleep is interesting that you mentioned, because I saw this podcast yesterday. It really made an impression on me. How important sleep is. So tonight I slept for almost 12 hours. So I'm like really well rested today. Usually I get up about 4 o'clock in the morning because I have 2 hours commute to work. And I also dedicated to having at least 45 minutes meditation in the morning. And have been doing that since the new year. Lots of New Year's resolutions regarding that. And that's definitely nice. But of course, then I have to get to bed at about 9 o'clock. So we'll see how it happens. But I think I'm always going to have to do a little bit of catch up in the weekends. But I'm going to try to take it more seriously with more regularity of sleep. Because I definitely feel in the body that it's very, the body feels more healthy after a good night's sleep. You sort of feel it in the belly, just something's a little off. If it's unrest and the mood is a little, but it's weird though, you still function and all. It's not that, but it's still, I don't know. It's like you're straining the system a little bit. And anyway, yeah, apart from that, I mean, obviously I also had as a New Year's resolution to watch a lot less political stuff, and especially the kind of political stuff that's sort of within this left-right framing and all this tribes and stuff. But obviously in the last few days, it's been a little bit difficult to not follow some of the events. But hopefully things will calm down. And definitely have a feeling that Trumpism is kind of finished now, I feel, in the way it has been, at least. It's something happened. It sort of doesn't fly anymore in the same way that it has. And I feel that's a good thing, even though it's obviously very unpredictable how it's all going to play out. Yeah. So apart from that, I'm also interested in the issue of freedom and structures and what's a viable structure. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Glenn. I would like to check in also. If there's an elephant in the room, I would assume that there are blind men, and each has a portion of the elephant to examine. And I'm sure at some point they will collaborate and find out exactly what that elephant is all about. The inner workings will have to come from the elephant itself, I guess. Apart from that, I would like to speak about sleep. I think that sleeping less and eating less are principles that terrify us, basically. So we assume that we should be feeling a certain way because that's a set of responses that our human-centric monkey mind has been programmed to run along. They're the real tracks. So if I don't sleep this much, I'll die. Or if I don't eat this much, I'll die. If I don't drink this much in this set space of time, I will die or I'll become ill. And I've always had an opinion from being a small child that everything is mind over matter. So if we set our intentions and we are stable with that, we look at our bodies and watch them, and if something changes, then we change our tack very quickly. That most things are achievable. You see people that push themselves to the limits in certain aspects, but if you start to push yourself to the limits in most aspects, your entire system upgrades. Everything moves in a different direction. If you can let go of all of the pre-programmed ideals and ideas that are controlling society impregnates and holds in place, then you move outside of that realm of expansion. Apart from that, I would like to talk about human-centricness, the human-centric ideal of everything. I think, Sam, you mentioned politics, you mentioned this, that, and the other. You're all speaking of Trump. What I speak about is the decimation of an entire planet, its factorization by a minority, and all of us clinging to an iceberg and slipping off it as an entire planet falls apart in a very warm climate where that iceberg seems to be melting. And, we need to look at climate as one aspect, but we need to look at what thousands of trees across the world, what billions of people standing together, armed forces turning towards free genesis across the planet would do, how we motivate this beyond the 110,000 eco-villages, etc., across the world, and how we can do this on a small scale at this moment in time, what we can engage with, how we can engage our minds, our bodies, our actions, our vision to move forward into this and work as teams, independent and interdependently. So first of all, a declaration of independence as such, and somehow a declaration of interdependence with all life being included within that, and then working towards real-time solutions, bit by bit, and not being harsh on ourselves or difficult with ourselves, and finding that cohesion in one standard, beautiful group of intelligent, bright, and capable people, and seeing if we can work with other pre-existing groups, functioning structures, eco-villages, whatever, to bring a currency on board, to bring technology and people that can develop technology on board and move forward, or grow wings so that we can all move home and take off. But also to be patient enough to let everybody's wings fall. Although our individual wings are big enough to carry everybody home simultaneously, to be patient enough to let everybody form their own wings, to empower them enough to do it themselves, so that we're all on a similar page when we step over that horizon to the next level of consciousness. And that's why I'm here. Always. That's my only motivation. I realised that I have one real mission in life, and I realised that if everybody else on the planet's happy, I will be happy. If everybody finds their golden mean, their Elysium or free Elysium or whatever it is, then I'll be happy. And there's no other way of doing it. So I just have to look within to look throughout and just be there as much as I can in any situation to try and remind people. It's not my job, but if I can do the best I possibly can in every moment, or try to do the best I can in every moment, then if I was to drop dead tomorrow, or at this moment, I know that I've done pretty okay, and that's all I need to move on to my next place as a happy spirit, or whatever happens, or go to sleep forever, knowing that I've done my best and been with people that are doing their best, and honour what that best is. Thank you.
Anybody not gone? Joel? Alex?
I will check in, and didn't hear what Barry started off with, but you heard the end trailing bit about the elephant and something bubbling, something rising up through the webosphere, cyberspace. A feeling between people that no matter what we do, it's not having any effect, or it's not having enough effect to be measurable, or to slow the demise of the environmental harm that's happening around the world due to our overpopulation, industrialisation, warfare, and all that crap. So the Trump's out of the office, and the Trumpism has been pushed aside by the establishment, by the status quo, the established authoritarian bigwigs that run the Washington. I guess they've decided they want control again. They want their control back, and so Biden's in power, and that's a shame. I think there's better people out there. Anyway, that's beside the point. The fact is, we are here, not out there. We are collaborating, and eco-villages around the world are waking up and expanding, spreading their spokes out from the central hub of an eco-village like a wheel. And then those spokes are joining other wheels, and it's turning into a flower pattern of the flower of life pattern. So that's where the spiritual aspect comes in for me. There's an angel in the room with that elephant, Barry, and it's not blind. So it understands, we all have an intuitive understanding of what our higher thought patterns are capable of when we meditate and focus on higher thought patterns. That's where I decided to focus on. Used my heart in the process, because the old lady who was accommodating me, she said, Alex, you need to think with your heart. You need to think loving thoughts, she said. So I thought, well, okay. She knew I could think, but she wanted to steer me onto the better path of thinking. I was always trying to fix things and help, and she noticed that what was missing maybe was I wasn't thinking with my heart, I was thinking with my brain all the time. That's changed over the last 5-10 years. And here I am today, still hoping that people will recognise their own power of one, their own power to change the world by acting, by doing things and co-creation. This is where we get the ball rolling, sort of thing. We act. Instead of just sitting around in these meetings, chatting and talking, we get on with it and do something together. Over.
There's a lot of things we need to fix. And one of them is a lot of the abstracted ideas we've created in our minds. We all go on about free will, but there's an extent to which that free will works. It works within us. The effect we then have on the world around us isn't our choice. And those relationships are driven by fundamental relationships that are outside of our control. We all want to reach almost an idea of paradise, but won't take on the understanding that there are things that will always be beyond our control, or the fact that sometimes, quite often, out of ego, the push for the free will and to willfully ignore other people's understandings and knowledges is what's created all of these problems in the first place. The West went around the world claiming to be better than everybody, claiming to be superior, to have the superior perceptions. And that's what a lot of cultures have done as they've taken over from cultures that's won. But when we pay attention to the history, especially the interactions of England with America when the Native Americans had control, the Native Americans spent the entire time trying to tell the English they didn't understand nature, they didn't understand how things were working. And it was the British that wanted free will and their right to choose, ignoring nature, that has burnt down this planet. We all want to have what we think will be right, but aren't willing to accept our own infallibilities. We have to be able to recognize everything around us, the working natures beyond what we just dream to be true. Our minds are capable of creating scenarios and ideas and abstractions that don't meet the fundamental natures of reality. And those natures drive everything to be here. From the physical realm of just material, that has its own interactive natures. And then as that builds up in complexity from its own basic functions, we arrive from it. I think it's very important we understand those in any dream world we wish to create. And I think it's important to recognize that throughout history, everybody has tried to change the words, thinking that it will change everything. But it doesn't. All it does is create the idea that we've changed something, and in reality, the same arrest. How is that different from kidnap? All it is the majority think we're right. We can force our rules onto everybody. Our emotions give us the right to dictate other people's lives and the interactions we can have. To me, that is nothing more than a mob dictatorship. Everybody's claiming that we've gone to freedom and it's the best thing we've done. But all that's really happened is we have more corruption in more people, grab, 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 grab. No one's willing to pay attention to the circumstances around them that they are causing just for the material grabbing, just for the idea of being the bigger monkey, just for the lack of acceptance that you could be fallible and that your ideas of right and wrong could be inaccurate. The lion has to eat, and the lion maintains the populations of those it predates. The population numbers dictate the number of lions that can exist. All of these things are interactive systems that we like to put our emotions onto, but in reality, those emotional reactions are that of children. Existence is children. Existence, what those who have the highest perception understand to be the God, Brahma, whatever other name you want to give it. They've been trying to tell the rest of humanity for thousands of years. A lot of these people, especially the light ones, hide and stay away from the rest of society, just going, well, we're going to go and be in our culture over here in peace. Take the forest monks, for instance. They're a little bit exiled from the actual Buddhist culture because they do things that the others don't understand, with them having greater understanding of the natures of reality. The beginnings of enlightenment allow you to see light within yourself and then to be able to see how you can manipulate that light. But that's the very, very beginning of enlightenment, and the true understanding of what is possible within existence requires a lot of practice and a lot of knowledge. I had a realization in meditation last night. I was paying attention to both the pleasure sensations, which perceived to be a sort of light, high frequency interaction, and the pain I was sensing from my legs for being cross-legged for so long, which seemed to be a negative high frequency interaction. As I was watching those interactions, I started noticing that they themselves were interacting with every other sensory level. I don't know how many of you have seen images with images hidden in them, with images hidden in them, with images hidden in them, with text hidden in them, and God knows how many levels of dimensional programming written into a two-dimensional image. All of our senses are related to all other senses. So within the images of images of images of images, in reality, is the infinite reactions to all other things with some time relationships. That puts a lot of possibility for perceptual data, for transmission of data through means that we don't understand, for senses of smells, for sensory abilities that the majority don't have, that you can only get with practice. I think it's time we started paying attention to the spiritual people again and accepting the knowledges that they can give us but can't provide evidence to. These cultures have been around for thousands of years, and yet science, whilst it has achieved a lot, has refused to listen to these people, believing no more. And yet, day after day, science proves what they have been saying all along, but calls it something different, just so they don't have to admit when they've been wrong. We have had progression, yes, but that progression has also ignored historic progressions that were achieved, evolutionary speaking. There's a lot to be glimpsed and beheld written into existence. The only way to obtain those perceptions and understanding is through years of training, through genetic progression. Everybody needs to accept this reality. How else is all of nature different than for everything to be slightly different, than for the fundamental natures of existence and their geometric positions and relations to cause those differences? We don't have the sense of smell like a dog. That was developed through evolutionary progression, from constantly using that sense. That's how all senses and abilities are developed. Intelligence, sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of touch, synesthetic abilities. All of these things require us to put time and effort into developing. Not everybody wants to accept that those things have come, because it would mean they would have to accept they don't have something, that they don't understand something. We all want to think we know reality. Just the more knowledge you get, the more you know you don't. And the more you have to start accepting what your senses tell you and what some of your genetics tell you. Accept the reality that these things just aren't our choice. They never have been. And it's the ego and all the other functions like that that makes us want to think we're all the same. It's laziness. It's obvious we're not. We have different interests. It's obvious we're not. We emote differently. It's obvious we're not. We want to do different things. We want to interact with people differently. If we don't recognize those natures, then we're not going to create a world that will work. We will just end up trying to push our idea to everybody else, like all other cultures in history have done. All of them the same knowledge, but that knowledge is always corrupted by the same type of people who want power and want to control everything. You can see this time and time again. A wise person will come along and teach everyone something. Then that will become a religion, a way of life. And then the emotions of the people start taking over. Their wants and material desires take over. I want to work for everybody. I don't really care about being paid about that. For me, the goal is to try and sustain our species and all life. But we live in a monetary world where people think that they've earned what they've got, whilst not paying attention to the fact, like, celebrities do nothing. All the builders, all the hard physical workers. Intelligence might give you intelligence, but it's nothing if you don't honor the people that support you. The intelligent developers are a small section of society because they do the work. Everybody wants to learn. Everybody's got the right to learn, but what they will learn will be specific to their natures. The top can't be supported without the bottom. And when we get to this technological level, the bottom can't be supported without the top, because they won't have the knowledge or understandings to recognize it all. This is why so many cultures in the past have collapsed. Because the top stopped looking after the bottom got annoyed with the top and then took out the top. And then because they didn't have the knowledge or inclination to learn, it left us losing knowledge. Buddhist culture got taken over, the Khmer Empire failed, Chan dynasties, and all of these things. Every single culture around the world now has had the scientific golden age and collapsed. Why? Because we refuse to pay attention to how things really work. The top get egotistical and refuse to accept the value in the bottom, the knowledge that the top don't have that the bottom do have, and vice versa. Our species is beautiful and diverse. It's time we stopped being lazy in that perception and accepting the truth of how it has to work. If we truly go back to a natural way of working, then farming animals needs to stop in the way that it's done. The animals need to move around the lands, and we need people moving with those animals. We then need those who act as predators to provide our species with the meat. This is the natural way of working, not farming and forcing them into buildings, but having them moving, understanding the true flows of nature and how both the light and the dark natures of existence work together to sustain, create, and build everything. All of this is geometric and number-based. It can be seen and understood. I'm sorry I've taken so long, but I got on this, and you all said things that brought these things to mind. So I'm done.
So would you like to check in, Bill?
Oh, I'm fine. Just deep in thought and meditation and trying to think of how to make things work.
Thank you. I think there's Colin and Kayla and Joshua have joined us. We're in the middle of a check-in round. It's actually 40 minutes after, but we're still checking in, yeah. Any of you three would like to opt in and check in, or I'll take by your silence after 5 seconds that it's not necessary.
Sam, can I just ask, what's that frame you've got in the background there to
What
your
frame?
left?
That?
No, the whitened thing with the vertical bars and the one going
That?
around.
That thing right there?
Yeah.
That's actually a lamp. I love that lamp.
Ah.
Here, let me show you what it looks like. It's turned on. It's a lamp. Well, because it casts light, I thought I'd have it off. Otherwise, it'll be affecting the video. But yeah, I got 4 of these, and they're Japanese by design, possibly also manufactured, and they're unique. I can't find them very many other places, so that's why I like to hang on to them and move them from place to place.
Yeah, it just
I
looked
am
like
attached to
something.
this lamp.
It just looked like something I designed for a column structure.
There is a
It's got
geometry to it, yeah.
Yeah, just twigged me.
By the way, I already checked in, but just so you know, my dad is a geometer. He's a mathematician specializing in geometry and complex spaces. FYI. Anyway, as you spoke, and by the way, I'm just going to assume that none of the 3 of you are going to check in, but interrupt me if you would like to. I was collecting notes while people were checking in. So let me just share what I've collected in my notes and see if you guys want to just quickly get a gander at this. So if you can see my screen now, can you read this, or is the font too small?
Far too small for me, but
I'm on a normal screen so I can read it.
Okay, then
I can see it.
A little bit too
let me
small.
make my screen bigger.
Um,
Where is my app? Where is my app? Wait, what happened? My Zoom window just took over everything. Okay, here we go. All right, let me make the font bigger then.
that's good.
Maybe
Yeah.
Well, that's too big.
What happened if you try F11?
that's
Okay.
perfect for me. I
All
can
right,
see
so
that.
anyway, what I've been doing is just gathering some thoughts. So the stuff here in green is the stuff that people have been talking about. The stuff in yellow is the stuff that I was kind of tracking from multiple conversations. So the pillars of co-visioning sense making still are out there for me, and they're always possible for topic. But let me just go through what has come up from check-ins. I had been connecting with somebody on Megatrend, so I thought that might be interesting. Shame and transparency from last week and the week before are still out there. It seems like we don't really want to talk about that, so I'll drop that after another week if people don't really lean into it. There's the comments that I brought up about Condoleezza Rice and the Capitol building events from this week. And then you guys have mentioned sleep and silence. Electoral college is over here as well. Truth and nothing but the truth. Mosquito and elephants in rooms. Freedom and structures. Centricness, decimation of a planet. Oh, Kayla got dropped. Declaration of interdependence. And then speaking from the brain, not from the heart. Free will and exercising free will without respect to the way things work. Fundamental natures of reality and whether words change reality. And then just the stuff that I came up with is on the right, and you guys can probably read that, but I'm not going to read those to you since the stuff on the left is what you guys really brought to the table. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that since I was listening for topics that we might be able to have a conversation on. Hey, Kayla, welcome back. So, who'd like to respond to anything of the above? Mr. Court.
I just wanted to close on an item that Alex mentioned about the elephant in the room and the angel. For those of you who don't watch or know about American TV series, there was a series on American TV probably a decade and a half ago called Touched by an Angel. And every week there was a guest star who played an ordinary human being who was in crisis, some kind of crisis. And each week, one of the regular recurring characters who was an angel would go down and engage with this person in crisis and sort of bring them out of crisis. And of the three recurring characters, my favorite was played by Roma Downey. And she played the youngest and most naive angel, Angel Monica. And she was the most compassionate. And she felt the pain of the character that she was engaging with. And so in terms of what Alex's point of view was, she was like the angel who would go down and tend to Mokita, the elephant in the room, the all alone character who's nobody will regard or talk about and is in some kind of crisis. And I put up in the chat, because a few years ago, I put up on Facebook a picture of Roma Downey, the actress who plays Monica, because she was not only one of my favorite performers on that series, she's also a redhead. I love redheads.
Thanks, Barry. I think, David, you were waiting to speak.
First thing, I can see four of you. I can see me, Sam, Glenn, and Barry. You guys are the more important in this scenario. Would you be able to sort of inform me of what's going on until I get a larger computer set up and just sort of mother me a little until so I'm not over speaking or whatever else because I can't see who else is on or how many of us are here or anything like that. Also, I would like to speak about shame and transparency. I'm very glad you brought that up, Sam, because the majority of those topics stem from trauma. I'd like to talk about trauma. Living in a shamanic healing retreat center for almost 12 months and looking at the multidimensional levels of healing where someone holds space without guilt. And this is quite an important thing. One of my friends is a space holder and worked with a shaman called Pit Hewitt, and he spoke of various different things that had happened from a guy pushing pebbles up his own bottom through trauma release, through almost demonic possession and trying to literally tear people apart. They had to tie them to a tree and various different things, but just not judging these things that happen, but just dealing with them in the present moment. To, you know, trying to touch other people sexually, etc., etc., and everything just being in that sacred space, being allowed to happen. And the next morning, it's shut off and gone. It's gone, and the person's changed dramatically. And I've physically seen people's bodily appearance and wrinkles vanish overnight as they've cried for, you know, 7 hours on end or whatever. Now, how in any situation in a room like this do we activate or allow this space holding to occur? How do we, within ourselves, give permission for that to happen, where we let judgment fall away? Now, I've noticed on GCC that sort of happens naturally. You can pretty much come in. I mean, I've come in with some weird and wonderful ideas in various states of thought processing and trauma processing, and you've still accepted me back as I am. And I've seen this across the board with everybody here, and I think that is a beautiful thing. And today, I would say Sam is the space holder, and a beautiful space holder at that. And the first thing that we do in a space where we feel comfortable with a coffee over friends is release trauma. That's what we're doing. Gossip, this, that, the other, all of it is trauma release. And it's the first foundation of any true community to move into different levels of consciousness, to allow us to move to the different aspects. Now, we all speak about higher and lower consciousness. We all speak about darkness and light. And it's all infeasible rubbish. We live in a universe that goes on forever. It inverts, and that sort of toric sort of implosion moves throughout all space and time, before and after all space and time, in all directions simultaneously. And what we would class as out, it's sort of it's an extroverted force of expansion as well simultaneously, like an in-breath and an out-breath at exactly the same time. Now, if we can get to a stage we can set a process that we can all experience an aspect of this, or choose to set an intention to try and experience an aspect of this, so that we're a little less limited in our human-centric ideals. If we understand the principles of it all. You see, I wouldn't say I'm spiritual. I'm certainly not Buddhist. I'm certainly not Christian. I'm certainly not a scientific person. I wouldn't class myself as a human, to be fair. You know, there's too many criteria within this form and formulation and all of this cyberspace. There's a place where all of these grey areas become rainbow colours. And I like to sort of exist, well, not like to exist, I sort of exist within that sort of sphere of consciousness. And I sort of let go as much as possible of everything that I think I may have been in the past. PASSED. And in this present moment, in this forgiven moment, if we remember that this is forgiven, this is a gift, this is a gracious act, or just to be gracious generally, it puts oil on the mechanism and allows us to hold space for ourselves and each other. And sometimes when we have no conclusion in something, sometimes when it has no purpose, it just creates that space, that in-breath and out-breath at the same time, where we just experience grace. Other times, we need somebody to keep pace and keep us on point. Could we have maybe a space holder and somebody that can somehow keep us on point, so that when we're talking about an issue that we'd like to manage and move forward, we can sort of say, you know, we need to move beyond this and make a choice and align this choice for us to move forward. Can we maybe not talk about the laundry and the kind of detergent we're using and how we feel today, and just sort of keep on to this? We need somebody kind yet strong to do that, a sort of matron type figure, be it male or female, and appoint a space holder, and maybe have someone where we can have conversations afterwards. That's kind. Barry, I would like to thank you for the other day when we spoke for the first time in a long time, and I was having a little bit of a crisis and struggling, and you were exceptionally warm and kind and very intellectual, and you walked and talked me through the crisis to a point of feeling confident, comfortable, and happy. I would like that we can all take that road, and we can all adapt and take these roles as well. I've spoken to Josh in a similar vein. I've spoken to you recently with an issue that I had, Sam. Glenn, not so much yet, but I'm sure this will happen. And if we can create a warm, supportive atmosphere with intelligence, with integrity, with a mental capacity, a physical capacity, and an awful lot of heart, and we all start leading from the heart, we can lose that human-centric aspect and lose that separated aspect. And if we can sort of, at some point, maybe think about having a true check-in, how we feel. And, if somebody's lost a loved one or, gone through a bad time, we can make allowances for their behaviour and, hold that space more beautifully. So maybe we can look at our frameworks, maybe we can look at making this more fluid and more flexible, and maybe we can remove these dualities, or at least open ourselves to be that in-breath and out-breath at the same time, at least if it's just in this room or in these rooms, in these movements, in these moments, so that we can be more expansive, because we need expansive cohesion, we need love and compassion, and need to look at things from different perspectives for this planet to move to a state of flow. And if we can do it in one room, we can do it on a global level, and it will happen naturally, organically, without any effort. And that's what it's all about. It's about changing the world without any effort, and effortless, expansive, to let it do its thing. Kids aren't meant to be structured and controlled, and meant to play. And all life just wants to play nicely. Humans tend to try and control everything. So let's try and let go of that human-centric ideal a little, let go of that idea of up and down and left and right and black and white. Let's just play nicely together and hold space. That's the idea that I have. Not an idea, but that's my in-breath and out-breath and ideal of grace. And can we be grateful for each other? Can we show that gratitude and compliment each other? Sam, you're looking particularly handsome today. Glenn, you also, and Barry, you too. But I can't see anybody else, but I'm sure you are too. So I don't want to leave anybody out. So I'm trying to be as inclusive as I can be as well. Okay.
Alex is making a swiping gesture, implying that you can swipe to see other people. Okay.
Yeah, the screen will swipe with the fingers if you've got a touch sensitive screen. Otherwise, you have to use the keyboard to go like that and see everybody, see the other people in the room on a mobile phone or on an iPad.
Hello, Josh. Hello, Alex. Hello, Colin. And hello, Joel.
The world just expanded.
Hello, Kayla.
It's a big elephant in the room.
Yeah, with many parts. Wow. Yeah, I just want to second what David said there. That I feel this is really interesting. That it is, we have this possibility of creating these kind of sacred spaces, you can call them that, and sometimes it's worked quite well, even in video conversations. And there is some kind of a playful magic in if we have this space where various types of ways can be expressed, and without judgment. A sort of the general attitude is one that comes from the heart. It's and it isn't tied to any specific structure, and occasionally we can follow a specific structure as well. So it's not tied to a lack of structure either. It's sort of, since that's an opportunity we have today, is to create these special spaces for being together and offering support on different levels, even if just through presence and understanding and sharing insights and then receiving insights, and some kind of a bubbling effect from it that I certainly feel for myself. And it's probably not any way to measure it, but that doesn't really matter. It's doable, and it doesn't seem to create any harm either. It seems that a lot of the harm that happens often comes from really great intentions, whereas people really want to force through a change, but for some reason it creates some kind of an opposition, maybe because it isn't based on the right understanding, or even, as Joel mentioned, sometimes when wisdom is being spoken loudly, you have others who resist for some pretty stupid reasons. So maybe if one wants to, share big insights with the big public, that maybe demands a very special skill. But in the meanwhile, that skill can be also developed in these kinds of relatively conscious spaces of just exchange. And that I certainly feel that they do a lot of good right from the get-go. There is a sort of a healing aspect to just the sharing itself, especially considering that there aren't that many such spaces in the modern world. There actually aren't many places where people meet and can really just talk quite freely about anything, and with a certain attention. So I believe in that. I believe it works already, even though it's not measurable, to do a lot of good, a lot of healing of the psyche, and that has ripple effects that we don't see. And obviously it also creates a lot of other opportunities that we've discussed a lot of, artifacts and knowledge and specific projects that can be ignited from the meetings. Yeah. Play spaces, Barry wrote. Play spaces is a good word.
Did I leave out any variations of the different kinds of play spaces, Glenn? I identified 5 of them that come to mind.
Yeah, exactly. 2 people play in private, no observers, non-participating, openly. Of course, then there's also the whole interaction between those play spaces and sort of a more longer ongoing process and things happening in between. I think there's many. Yeah, Sam.
I think David wanted to speak, but then I've got many responses, but Colin also has his finger up.
This was exactly. I wanted to bring up some play spaces, and I wanted to bring up a set ideal. Now, instead of taking everything so seriously, why don't we admit that we're all children, petulant children that need some governance? So why don't we give ourselves play spaces? Why don't we see this all as a game? And at the moment, we've been involved with a casino. The game's been, you know, a game of crap, as they call it, or, you know, a game of pitch and toss, or a game where the little cup with the balls. We've been playing it for an awful long time. So the best way to win a game where you know 80%, where it's 80% stacked toward the house, is to leave the table and choose the games that you decide to play. So I was going to put a few games forward that are participatory games that people might want to play. So one was our little organic cooperative that will interlink with the monasteries here in Thailand. One is called Gaia Network, which is a network of people coming together to find alternative funding to create these cities of light across the world. They're meeting in Brazil at the moment. They've got many teams that are, it's sort of like GCC is now, but now it has the physical aspect and the movement and the minds actually moving to physical reality. They've got one eco village set up, and they're in the middle of setting the second one up. This was possibly going to be a space for it to create a larger regenerative structure. Maranice is in Dan have just got married in Brazil, and they are working. They're connected with the Venus Project. I spoke to Dave Tech Smith about this, and Dave was going to sort of possibly come in with this organisation and work. But all of these are non-invasive and fluid, drop in, drop out, no tie-ins or sign-ins or anything like that. If you want to, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And there's another one, weirdly, that Leslie Levinson started up, which is GCC, which is actually a group of predominantly the African region of permaculturalists and various different things. There's three key players in it at the moment. There's a guy called Princito, a guy called David Agola, and a new gentleman that's just entered that has a permaculture space for orphans, and he feeds and looks after them and helps them learn skills that are helpful. And he's got kids that are tiny up to various different levels, and they're looking for some leadership, for some movement, for someone to sort of take them under their wing and be an angel. Is there any way that we can somehow try to create a flowful, playful way of interfacing with these people and check it, Alex? Yes, and check it. Be play it as a game. Imagine that we're entering into a game that we can step in and out of anytime we want, because we don't want to play chess all day long. We don't want to play pretend all day long or anything else. So let's try and look at games we can introduce that we can maybe play, dropping in and out of. Now, I don't know how many members there are in GCC in total, but if we can turn this trauma release into a game that starts to release trauma across the globe on a multi-dimensional level, freeing us a little more, we can start to play games that are nice and beautiful with simple parameters that can change the scope and scope of things for other people just by empowering them to do it themselves. So we're not, sort of being relied on too much. There's too many crutches in the world. But given, say, a guy that looks after orphanages, orphan children, in one of the African states a hand to move forward, just to help as much as we possibly can, to try and engage and behind the scenes to collaborate, so that when we go back, we can have real-time solutions, real ideas, alternative currencies, ways of helping them move forward where they don't need funding, where they can be creative, and setting intentions that are realistic, honouring them to an extent so that we're not letting people down, and just playing within these parameters, and apologising and putting hands up if we make mistakes, but just moving forward gently and kindly. And we can all bring games to the table that other people wish us to engage in. When I first joined GCC, my enthusiasm was vast. I'm more enthusiastic now, but it's more warm and loving. It's a bit more like that in breath and out breath. And all of my friends, I was like, these are great guys. You've got to join. You come and chat, talk to them. And I remember, I don't know who it was, brought it up and just said, David, why are you trying to bring all of these people to GCC? We're a little bit worried that you're trying to take over here. And that was the sort of underlying current that I felt. And I was like, I didn't know what to say. So I just sort of said, well, but really, I'm an enthusiastic person. When I say good people, I just want all of my good people to be your good people, and your good people to be all of my good people, and be a good person. So that's it. I'm pretty much like a perpetual child, to the point where, like, if there's something shiny, you've lost me for an hour. Focus is so that track keeper, that person that keeps us on point, that's like the matron, the good father, the good mother. I think I need that. I don't know if you guys do too. I'm sure, and it has to be someone exceptionally kind. Now, this is what elders are about. You see, I would never pick a politician, an elder, or anyone else in any position of empowerment that you wouldn't give a sick puppy to and sort of know that they'd do the best. And that if the puppy died, it really needed to pass away. So we need to act like that in every situation, right? I need Sam to trust me that if his puppy is sick, he's going to go, David, please, I've got to go away. I've got no other choice. There you go. I know it'll be fine. And I want us all, I would like to get to a stage where we all would trust each other 100% to leave our prime, beautiful, perfect child in care with that person and know that it will be all right. Because if we can get to that stage and we can work together, that's what I call flowful. And that's where we need to get to, that flowful state, where we're playing and enjoying and having fun in cyberspace that spills out into our real time, into our families and friends, into our communities. And we look in. If we are triggered by anything, we need to look inside. Where is the root cause of that? Where's the light below that that's going to spark and light that up, so that that's no longer a problem or issue inside us, and get to that state where it flows, so we can wow, I was triggered. And maybe while we're here or in our real time, I would call this real time as well, straight after we start to examine that, walking to go to the toilet afterwards, it's released, it's gone. If we can get to that flowful state and work and play through everything we do, we're moving. We're interstellar. We're weightless. The payload, all of your time and effort, and all of the great work you've done is the I don't know, 20,000 kilotons of fuel that has got the payload into space. And I'm coming in when the payload's actually in space. You guys have done all the hard work, and I'm truly grateful for that. And I can see all of the work and effort, the inner work and effort that's gone in, the trauma release, and everything that you've done when I first came in, I saw so many of you talking over each other, fighting, and I was in a similar situation myself. My prime thing is run away, and come back when it cools off. And I see this beautiful collaboration of humans beyond humans, sovereigns beyond humans, coming into this I don't know, space of, this is not an insult, beyond teenage strops to an adulthood of childlike creation and co-creation. And I think it's exceptionally beautiful. And I think I must be at a similar stage. Hence the interface, because we attract like energy. Our vibrational patterns bring us together when we're ready. And I think they must be. So with that, I'm complete. Thank you so much, guys. I'm honored to be here, wherever that is.
Thanks, David. Alex, is just a finger of agreement or a finger that you wanted to speak? Because Barry's also got his finger up. Barry.
Very interesting, because first of all, we're a pretty small group here today. What, 8 people, I think it is, if I'm counting right. And this session today, which is a little, we could call it a little cult, a little group that's meeting in camera, but on camera, because Sam is recording this. And as far as I know, as usual, he will publish this on YouTube. So whatever this little group is doing today, soon the general public will have access to it. Now, David mentioned a little play space that he and I had maybe a week or so ago, which happened in PM. It was a little play space with just 2 people and no observers present. And David says it was a good session and it had a good outcome. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason why we couldn't take the recording of that, because after all, it's in PM, and just publish it and say, here's an example of a play space with happened to be 2 people, not in public, not on camera, but didn't have to be. And if we want to illustrate what David is saying was a good thing, then if he and I agree, and I don't see why he wouldn't, because I saw him, gesture, transparency, exactly. So I propose that David and I take that little transcript and just publish it as a addendum, an appendix to this session, so people who are watching it on YouTube in a week or so can say, here's what David was talking about that worked. Because to be perfectly honest, I really don't know what I did right. He says I did something right, and I say, I did? What did I do right? What did I do different that I normally do that worked in this case and has backfired and blown up in my face, when I do the same practice with somebody else? So maybe we can figure something out. And so that's my proposal. And I think I already have consent. So unless anybody has a strong objection, I think we'll do that.
What does a strong objection look like? No, don't post this private thing that just the 2 of you had. I don't want to see it. Is that what?
The strong objection is, how dare you take a private conversation and reveal it? How dare you?
I'm being a little
automatically assume that you don't do that. And you're a bad person for doing that.
I'm automatically assume anything I do on this space is recorded somewhere. So, that's transparency for me. And when I was, I've lost track of that. Let somebody else speak. Albert.
Alex, thanks for bringing that up, because just a few minutes before I started here, I saw someone post, what would happen if you owned every word that you speak? And that's what happens when people feel that they're being recorded, right? So many people feel that they're not willing to be recorded because, they don't know what's going to come or what they might say, I find that a curious thing. Why would you actually not know what you're going to say? Anyway, that's a off the topic. But there was a question, and it was a very important question I felt, which was, what would you do? What would you say? How would you feel if you owned every word that came out of your mouth?
So what does that mean, Sam? Own
I don't know.
your
She just
word?
used the word own, but interpret it how you would. For me, it just means that, hey, you take accountability for it. You said you did it. That doesn't mean that you show up perfect. It just means that, mistakes can be on the record if you feel they are mistakes, in my opinion. Okay. And really the only way it stays a mistake is if you don't actually, grow from it. So that would be one way to take it. Anyway, Colin's got his finger up, and then David.
Yeah, no, I think it's all dependent upon what's being done, what you're working on. Like if we were all in the military and we're working on secret plans, I don't think that we would assume that it's public just because, maybe we wouldn't be even allowed.
On the record does not necessarily mean public, Colin.
I tend to think that you're running a firewall that might have bugs. That's all I'm saying. So if you have a firewall with bugs, that means that even though you think it's not public, it could become public very easily. Like Barry, talking to Barry, and he says, oh, by the way, anything you say here is public. And I say, okay, well then this IM is a public channel with Barry. So everybody know when they're talking to Barry, he has no filter. He just, that's Barry. And if that's the way he sees things in his worldview, then that's great. You just, when you're working with Barry, know that you're live for some reason. He feels he needs to have that audience. And I do agree that if you have something to share, then definitely produce it and share it. So again, it's not about whether it's public or private or not. To me, it's always from my personal point of view, it's from, am I ready or am I just spitballing? And I heard a lot of spitballing today, but there's themes that come back. I also see that when you allow somebody to ramble, they actually might be saying more about their own impression than, what they think that they're instructing. And I noticed Joel, he was saying and doing something that I find that I do sometimes. And I start saying you, and I find after about 4 U's, I have to say, and by you, I mean people, not you. So I'm using you like we, like I. It's just confusing as hell. But it's when you're talking to the big philosophical you, that's where it comes from. And you're spitballing. And so, yeah, if you're within context of what you're there for, that's great. It's when vulnerability, I think, comes in, when you actually get to that point where you don't have self-confidence, or, you're in a space that you're not comfortable. You don't really want that recorded. So if this space stays comfortable, so comfort's a thing that's individual. The idea of what's better is also individual. And I'm trying to take a new approach, because I've noticed that even though everything in this group seems to be leaning towards positive, it's very easy to bring in a challenge and people take it as a negative. So you get off track. And also, Sam's made a good point many times in the way you present the idea. Like, are your hands moving? Do you look like you're triggered? Are you very passionate? So the way you present something also matters. So there's a lot of things we learn here. So I'm trying to learn to not change my message. I'm still after understanding. That's the big umbrella word for me. Yesterday I heard somebody's umbrella word was purpose. And I wanted to say, well, purpose lives underneath understanding for me. Kindness lives underneath understanding for me. And overall, I find that when I listen to David, I could pick apart all kinds of things that, nitpick things like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I think I did that last week a little bit. But overall, is he not talking about what to me humanism is? And is that not something that I subscribe to? So, I think it comes down to the individual having responsibility for knowing the room and context they're in. And then they can act appropriately with consequences, risks, and how ready they feel they are to be. And Glenn hit some good stuff earlier too. It's not only can we have a conversation, but what are the conflicts in that conversation? You know, are people willing to have the conversation? Or are they just going to ignore you or block you? So there's all kinds of different aspects when it comes to trying to find understanding. And I would like to find a game model where people don't assume that they're being disparaged, but they're being actually questioned for greater understanding. And if some people just like to make a statement and say that's all there is to it, no questions, please. Like you see Trump walk off, say no questions. It's like that's not a very good way to trust somebody who's in charge of a whole country to say, well, you're not accountable to questioning. In fact, it seems like that whole reporter situation's gone on its head with Trump being his own reporter on Twitter, although maybe there's some pushback coming there as well. So yes, the save the world, all of us this, those are trigger words for me. There's all of us nothing other than breathing air and needing Maslow's, you know, so if we're talking about Maslow, then fine. But it comes down to what I can do, what I feel I should do, what I should put my time into, what I should say to Sam to be more clear and try to have an understanding of why I'm here. And the fact that I think he is the leader of this group, but you know, whether he started out as being the leader or not, he is now to me. He records it, he curates it, he shows great interest in it, he builds a map to remember what's going on. He offers us all to bring our opinions, and then he says, and if anybody else doesn't want to talk about something, then I've got some stuff to back you guys up. So Sam's really got this training. And I think if I wanted to have something that would be my training, I could present it here, but I don't think I would try to take over what Sam's doing for my idea. It'd be more of a Gertrude kind of thing, like an offshoot. So Sam said several times, there is no we here. And I think there is a we here, but the we here is part of what I would like to understand, what that we is and how we can have conversations that are difficult and lean into them. So that if I started to challenge David on some of the things he said today, he would know I'm coming from a good place of understanding. And we could actually make that public and map it out, right? Follow that thread. So I think not following the thread is one of the biggest mistakes I am doing here. And when I do try to follow the thread, sometimes I get accused of repeating myself. And Sam has also said he repeats himself because he kind of knows what he's going to say, but how I'm going to say it, how I'm going to express it, it's being recorded and I don't really know. But one thing I do know is the more I participate, the more I am mindful of owning the words that I say. And, you know, even so much that I think each of us should go back and look at the things that we've contributed today and expand upon them. Sam makes the notes available. Barry said, I'd like to put an amendment, another thread off of there, because Barry is the father of all offshoots, right? Because he's got something for everything you say. So, you know, and Sam said some things and Joel's mind was jolted in it. You know, I just had something I had to say. Well, those are the offshoots that we should be capturing that are part of the we, but are going towards what we could support that individual in. So if David Middlemiss is talking about humanism, then I'm 100% behind that, and I hope he realizes that. When he's talking about some of the ways he wants to do it, he's spitballing. So I don't have to, you know. And then some of the stuff he's got's more solid. Like, you know, there's a group of these people that I'm trying to join with. So I think there's some different aspects that we could help the individual with their desire to bring those things forward. And if they're successful, I think they would sprout them out somewhere where this is more of a meta group. And anything we can do to help the understanding and supporting of the messages, I think is what I'm here for. Not actually trying to do any of the SDGs, unless that's something I want to do as an offshoot. So I think trying to organize in my mind what actually is the GCC in a Venn diagram and get other people to add their variations to it would go a long way. And we've talked about that visioning many times here, but it still seems to be something that we could appreciate what each person's perception of what is happening because when they start speaking, they're talking more about themselves than they're talking about the we, I think. And so and we should identify the things that are solid we things. And some of those things are like administrative duties. Sam takes it all on himself right now. So we should thank Sam for that. But I think we could do more with spreading understanding if we had our own private Zoom account that anybody could take out like a library card and put it under whatever label needs to be. Maybe GCC that label is getting a little stale. I don't know. That's another question. Like, I think everything has evolved. What Doug started out doing, and then he took over Saturday doing deep dives, and now he's settled into, I guess, doing all the other shows except for this one. So it's very fluid, and he's a co-host with Gertrude, which isn't recorded. And then he still hosts the open one. But if Doug has to go and we're in the middle of a really good conversation, all of a sudden that magic just disappears. And I would like to say, if we are conscious enough, and this is the consciousness I like, we only have to be conscious enough to realize that it's not all about the individual, but it's about what the individual can do and share, and what they can be as part of the community. I hear that. But it is what the individual's bringing. Because what else do you have? And when they say there's a bigger group that the individual contributes to, and then that group can do something, that's that collective intelligence that we're trying to reach for. But I think that's more prepared than serendipity. And I think this is a lot of serendipity at the moment. So anyway.
So I want to thank everybody who has spoken, because there's some new ideas bouncing around in my head that I want to take a chance to express. A couple of you have now mentioned this space holding concept. And to me, space holding can be done well. It can also be dangerously done badly. So I really want to acknowledge the sense in which it might be done well. There is, however, some evidence here that is actually done quite badly, okay? And the evidence I see is that I think Kayla's the only woman here. And Kayla hasn't even spoken yet. Now, my interest in establishing mutual understanding and leaning into disagreement and really exploring those and treating those as opportunities to learn and to grow and whatever is sometimes initially experienced as discomfort. Some people are not comfortable with disagreement. And it's because I think we haven't, in general, and I am using the word we, not learned how to disagree well. If we disagree well, then no one should feel threatened. If I'm leaning in to say, hey, David, what do you mean by that? Or Colin, what did you mean by that term? Without saying, Jesus, I'm not familiar with that term. I don't ascribe to that idea. There's a different way of disagreeing and just showing non-understanding. And sometimes if that comes across as, yes, I'll use the word violent, then certain people will be repelled by that. And I know that I've pissed off many such people that way. So there's a balance that can be struck between being welcoming, being warm, being open, hearing someone, and then having that person comfortable enough with you that I can then feel confident that when I express an interest in something I don't understand, that is not taken as a threat. That is not taken as, oh, you're wrong, and I understand it this way, you understand it that way. It's not that duality in a sense. It's how can I then come together and merge with my idea so that my idea is more valuable because it's now got the benefit of your idea. That's the way I'd like to establish mutual understanding. But to go there too quickly will bounce somebody out if they haven't yet understood that we're really interested in leaning into these misunderstandings / opportunities to grow. And yet there's the other side, which is if people come in and don't understand that we're leaning in, then at the very first sign of it, they're going to say, oh, geez, I don't belong here. And I don't want that to happen either, right? So those are all, I think, aspects that I try to figure out within myself. And I can't tell whether or not I'm doing a good job or not. I only see the evidence here as being some people come once or twice or 3 times and then they bounce out. Many women come a few times and then they bounce out, right? So that's the evidence that I'm looking for. And I'm saying I'm not the only space holder here. We are all space holders here. We're all doing this inside ourselves, whether we know it or not. We're either easily saying, oh, I disagree with that, so therefore I must speak next. Or somebody's new here, let's let them figure out, what this is, and let's listen to them well. And I know Joel is shaking his head, okay? But it is a balance that each of us has to essentially figure out that dance. There's many other dances, but that's at least one of them. Over for now.
It seems to me we have practiced this quite a lot, this approach of disagreeing well. Maybe we can call it that. But it's like, if somebody shares something, then you sort of assume that there's a real interest in understanding more. That's what I like best about what Colin mentioned. That for him, understanding is sort of the main umbrella. It kind of is for me too. That so I was wondering, since we've talked about agreements, maybe the only agreement we really need in a room like this, as a sort of stable agreement, is this thing I call rule omega, which kind of is that you always assume that there's some truth to what people share and something interesting there that's worth looking into. And if you're in doubt, then you can ask questions. And if we just have that one thing, that just opens the space up widely, because then you don't get this taking things personally. I mean, that's sort of a little bit strange. That's not in accordance with it. Let me say it differently. Like if we sort of have just that one agreement that we all want to understand more, and we're going to assume that there's a truth in what each of us brings, even if it's sort of behind it, or at least there's something interesting there that's worth looking into. It's an attitude thing, right? You just have this attitude, this open-minded attitude. Non-judgmental attitude is another way of saying it. But it's all kind of the same thing. Open-minded, non-judgmental, rule omega, assuming that there's something valuable. Even if it sounds strange, if it sounds idiotic, if I'm in doubt, then I assume there's something I haven't understood yet, so leaning in with me to ask questions and try to understand more. And it does seem that sort of solves a lot of the problems. At least it opens up a much larger space and possibilities of speaking about more aspects of the elephant, and possibilities of increasing our understanding a lot more. It's just that attitude. And I think that attitude has been cultivated quite a lot in these meetings, and it's given results. But it is a big thing. At the same time, I shouldn't pretend that it's just very simple, that if you just say, oh, this is rule omega, let's just agree to this. It's probably not that simple. It's a very big thing. Maybe it takes years of practice to really really get there. And then maybe a few years more practice to do it even better. But it's all sort of one thing, isn't it? Yeah, I think you had something there. Yeah, I'm finished.
If you're done, I thank you. But then I think Alex has something to say.
Yes. This alignment, we have got these are alligator clips. And when we're in alignment, we have this structure that 1, 2, 3 represent people in the collaboration. They're aligned like that, but if we change the configuration to go like this, so that they're aligned in a series of like that configuration, that's a different alignment, and it's much more concentric because it's a focal point. So that's good for local structures. And those extensions, if there's another 3 here, here, and round here, you end up with a network. You end up with a grid pattern, a formation. Like Joshua's background picture, it's a triad. And at each point of that triad, you've got this connection between other 3-pointed star or hexagon. This is a section of a hexagon where 3 of them meet at that point. So that's connected to Mandelbrot and the chaos theory, the theory of the Mandelbrot iteration. If one person adds a friend, they've iterated, or 2 friends, they've iterated the branch like a tree, the trunk comes up and 2 branches go out. There's your seed. We're sprouting a growing, emergent global organisation by linking our pages together without any hierarchical structure. This is the new paradigm made available by the technology of the internet. Over.
David, and then me.
What I would like to do is, as much as possible, I'm trying to keep a very open overview of everybody's opinions, thoughts and feelings, and try and work into that without sort of overbearing my boundaries. So for Barry, I'm going to read out some words instead of going into a long conversation. And I would just like all of you, for Colin, I would like everybody to pretend that we are under an umbrella. And as Sam said, we are all space holders. And transparency and guilt are the things that trigger us a lot of the time. There are many other emotions that trigger us as well. So if we can imagine that we are space holders and we are the umbrella rather than the participants, it gives us a sort of nice place to be as observers without actually nitpicking or jumping in, and it gives us, you know, an ability to be less self-humanistically orientated and just in the flow, in the energy. So I'm going to read out the words that have been most pertinent for me. So be the umbrella, disagree or disagreed, self and selflessness, transparency and guilt, onus and responsibility, fractal hands rather than just conversations or, you know, the physical aspect of it, all of them coming together to become fractal hands across the globe, changing the spaces. Comfort, shamanism, inner standing, understanding, power over, power under, overstanding, inner standing, the tree of life, the flower of life, leaders and space holders, being challenged, free and control. So I'm going to elaborate a little, but I'm going to try and keep it brief. So be the umbrella, disagreed. It's a self-motivated aspect. if with the umbrella we're a little more selfless and more observant, just allowing flow. Sam, you spoke about if we owned our words, I'd have to build a basement or an extension. It will be a very big one. I might have to create a new planet just for the amount of words I speak. So I think owning those words is important. Are you still on mute, Sam? Sorry.
I was saying, you'd be surprised how much you can currently hold. A lot of electrons can fit in your current space right now.
Thank you. Owning our words, starting small, just keeping our word. Because if we understand rather than understand or overstand, we start to do what we say, walk the walk and talk the talk, and that's a very important thing. Onus. Yeah, onus used to be, or there'll be onus involved, just like responsibility. Oh, there's a lot of onus and a lot of responsibility there. Oh, I don't want that. So I'll say I'm going to do something and say yes, 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 I can, because I don't like saying no, and then I'll not do it. You see, onus is ownership. The ownership of fools. Stewardship's a nicer word. It's more fluid. So you can steward your words, maybe. And a responsibility, oh, it's a big responsibility. You don't have big responsibilities. It's ability to respond, that's it. So you have an ability to respond. Now, if somebody can tell you it's big responsibility, take it off you. Governments, fools, idiots, selfish, selfless. Comfort, shamanism, transparency, and guilt. When you vomit into a bucket after you've taken a plant medicine you don't know where it's from, gone into a ceremony with a shaman you've never met in your life before, with a load of strangers you've never met before, sweat the entire night, cry, scream, whatever, and you can't touch each other, you have to go through your own personal journey and you're on your own. No God, no demon, no anything, no mother, no light or anything else can help you, and you have to jump into the void completely and just surrender. It teaches you something about other people's shit. Sweat, tears, screaming, trauma release, shoving pebbles up the bum, trying to touch you because they're lonely. And you start to see through the dross and the true person beyond that. That's what we're doing here. This is a shamanic retreat. We're puking in a bucket, purging all of our darkness so that we see it as light, the catalyst that takes us forward to the next stage. And again, it's inner standing, because anything that triggers us, anything, and I would talk about communication, it's exceptionally important. We often are triggered by the same thing spoken in different words. It's exactly the same energy. It's just, that's my energy. That's your, no, our energies can't mix. They can. We're talking about the same things. We're arguing the point of the flea's nose, basically. Challenges. Challenges come from our greed and selfishness and being involved in the hurricane rather than centered in the eye of the storm, being the umbrella, observing, or even observing the observer if you can. And we talk about re and free and D. So we D things and re things, and that's how control has been manipulated throughout the entire planet for as long as humans have existed, probably. So we can recognize, think of how many words you can put free in front of, and some of them sound a little bit sort of, a little bit unfluid, but freeality, free deemed, free of judgment. So you can use it as free of instead of freeing. So freeality is a beautiful thing. If you have a decent concept or a decent precept to start with, do only the good of all good. So let's start setting fluid, flowful parameters for each other giving space to each other, watching each other puke in the bucket, giving each other the space when we need it, and holding each other's hair out of the puke flow when it starts to come, and start understanding why we are challenged or triggered, because this is the good stuff. This is the gold. In that there crude oil that's going to get all over you and make you smell like a rancid pile of poo is the stuff you're going to shed and turn into light. So it's time to start shining here. You know, I from when I first came here, you will have seen my poo pile, and I'll have seen your poo pile. I've run away many times and come back, and many other people will have done so too. But we keep coming back. What does that say? We keep in touch, just even little bits, until we start to trust each other a little, and you know, that sort of like friend. So I think I used an analogy of us all being hedgehogs backing into GCC, and I'm going to be totally open and honest with you guys. I'm ready for a belly rub. So if anybody wants to, you know, rub me little soft belly, I'm lying on my back, and I'm ready for a belly rub. It's time that the world gets a belly rub, and that we leave the game that's 80% stacked to house, and 1,000,000% stacked to all life, all that is, ever has been, ever may become, everything before and after, space and time. It's time to start loving with gay abandon. And gay as in happy, not as in me, that kind of gay. But whatever, you know, the judgment, that's the one, Sam. With that, I am joyfully and happily complete.
I'm going to sign off. I have to get on another meeting. Nice chatting with you.
Bye, Joel.
Seeing you.
Thanks, Joel.
I'll tell you a funny story. This is like 35 years ago. I was in a very estranged relationship for a while, and I would unconsciously do this. And this person, who considered herself very keen on reading body language and nonverbal communications, had no clue what this was about. And it never occurred to me that I was even doing this.
She'll be here for 2 hours if I let her.
I guess we're on the.
Never two,
I was going to say we're on
never
the
two wolves and cuddles.
I think you both wanted to speak. Barry, what did you want to say?
I was just going to say we're on the topic of body language. One other gesture that I had that this individual couldn't make sense of. I'm a very logical person. So, for example, if I'm diagnosing some anomaly, I'll be ticking off all the hypotheses that are on the table, and I'll be walking through, you know, them, and I will do this gesture as I tick them off. And I didn't even know I was doing this gesture. It was just one of these unconscious things. And the same problem was this individual says, I have no idea what this is all about. And I was actually just ticking off one by one possible hypotheses that are on the table, and I'm thinking through, trying to figure out what's the ground truth here. So here I have two gestures that to me were just, you know, everyday gestures. And I never even realized I was doing them. And yet this other person pointed them out and says, I have no idea what those mean.
David, you wanted to say something?
Just, I noticed that it's this could be a broad view. The times that I've been here, it tends to be a very masculinated environment here. It would be nice to have, hello Kayla, it would be nice to have some more feminine energy. Maybe it is a consideration that we can work on ourselves, so that we bring a little more balanced energy to the table. And that might be an interesting concept. Or, I don't know how we could do that, but encourage more of that sort of energy. And maybe in that, it would bring real, classically female, gendered humans, multidimensional beings to the space. Just a consideration, just a sort of an energy shift and observation, basically.
Well, personally, I think I resonate with that remark. In fact, I think I alluded to that earlier. And just so you know, there's another group on Facebook that graciously invited me in that is exploring masculine, feminine complementation. Not, hey, you're beautiful, compliment, how we, match each other's strengths and weaknesses and interests and that sort of thing. So I'm doing that because I do know, as I've observed, that not many women come and stay in this particular group. Kayla is exceptional, but she's been very quiet. She may not, feel like she's a part of this conversation. Tyra has come several times, but she hasn't been here, I think, the last 2 times. So it is a question in my mind. This one is always here. This one is female, by the way. I won't use the word, but she is female.
What's her name?
What?
What is her name?
This one is Tia.
Tia.
And that one is
Hello,
Tara. And that one is Gaia.
Well, you have 3.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And Helios is upstairs. That's my daughter's dog.
Are they all Goldens?
They're all Goldens, yes.
Oh, beautiful.
Golden Retriever. Oh, she's looking so happy.
Anyway, it is either past or at the top of the hour. No, we still have 4 minutes. So I was just curious, this has been unexpected. We've gone some territory I didn't expect to cover. It seemed to be the group interest, however. So just curious to see what you guys might have extracted or will be walking away or rolling away with out of this conversation. Josh, you've been kind of quiet as well. Colin, you've been relatively quiet.
I'll check out this hemp farm idea is generating interest with eco-village owners and what have you, because hemp products have a high value. Hemp seed oil, for example, is a high value for the planters and the producers and the product manufacturers. So there's interest there. And it comes from Swiss financial investment groups and financial investment groups in Ireland, in Germany, in Finland, and in Australia. And there might be some in the US. I'm not sure about that. But it's definitely interesting and taking up a lot of my time at the moment. And so I decided that my particular venture will be documented so that others can see the mistakes and get a few hints along the way, perhaps. Over.
This is a massive thing. I've had here on site, I've had 5 separate people come and ask if we're going to start growing hemp. Now, Chiang Mai, the retreat center I was at, all the old farmers grow marijuana everywhere. It was a staple diet. It was put in as a flavoring in foods, which is a separate idea. But basically, we have a cannabinoid system, an opioid system, a tobaccanoid system. We have a dimethyltryptamine system within us. And all of these systems would have been fully online with the indigenous foodstuff that we ate. We would have had thousands of variants of herbal and healing medicinal plants in our standard normal diets. Now, all of those have been pesticidically driven out. They have been ecocidically driven out. These are acts of genocide and ecocide, because our seed songs, the stories of our seeds, our core creational expansion through the foods we eat, the mycelial networks, the connection to the light from the stars. We've realized that when we grow guilds of plants, if we grow them in the mandala pattern, it energizes communities and energizes gardens. It energizes the soil from the light that is conveyed to the fungal networks and the microorganisms in the soil, and these become vibrant and we can regenerate much quicker with these guilds. Imagine if the entire planet was planted intelligently. Imagine circles really were from extraterrestrial beings that are showing us how we should be conducting our agriculture so that it energizes the planet and brings it to a multidimensionally energetic system. Imagine if we turn on our cannabinoid systems, our opioid systems, dimethyltryptamine systems, without taking anything from the outside world. Imagine if we switch it all on instantaneously to become multidimensional beings rather than static blobs of blood and bone. Now, in meditation, we're playing with these ideas, and in absolute silence, etc., we are communicating in completely different ways. I've seen some things that would turn your toes in fear, and things that would elate you in joy and wonder from some of the monks in various different things. And I've seen this right through my life. I've been very lucky to be involved with energy healing, to learn energy healing techniques, etc., etc., to see things in ceremony that I thought only I saw and I was hallucinating, and then I've spoken about it the next day, and other people have seen it. Entities, energies, whatever. Now, all of this is just folly. The real truth of the matter is how we all get on together, and how we make that more beautiful, and how we make that more fluid and flowful and joyful for everybody. And all of these are just happy, gentle, serendipitous side effects. What I've gained from tonight and all of the sessions is communication, openness, honesty, a sense of warmth and openness of heart. And I'm extremely grateful for all of you and for being, come unity. Community is just come and unity together. So it has come, and we are free uniting. We are free religious, or freely allegiant with all and everything simultaneously, that in-breath and out-breath at the same time. Kibbutz, and just giving space and holding space. And the most important thing is to start with the inner space, because that has to be vast enough to house this wonder that we are creating together. And I'm very thankful for all of you. And we're all connected. We are all united. So thank you guys. I've gained an awful lot just in the first 2 sessions with you. It's beautiful.
Yes, thank you too. And I also have to go now. But really enjoyed it, and it is a communion. It is this space that nourishes, and always a lot of great things that come up. So touching on all kinds of aspects of existence. So anyway, until next time, guys.
I guess I was speaking on mute. Anyway, David, I think you're the only person other than Colin who's arguably too much a neighbor to be called overseas. You're the only overseas person, so I appreciate you guys not making a mockery of the United States after this week. Could have easily gone there. Could have easily gone there. Oh, Alex, you're overseas. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem of making a mockery of it. I think it's being thankful that it wasn't any worse than it was.
Those guys got through
re-escalate.
those police lines too easily.
Yeah, it was. But I guess I do want to check out with a little something. And I mentioned this to Doug, I think on Thursday. I've been playing around with the Zoom videos, highlighting different, as you know, I've done a few for you, Sam, you've seen these gems where I would like to plant that seed of that person's thought. At least it's something that could be hooked and validated by that person into some kind of a knowledge trail that they're bringing. And that's kind of owning your words, and not only owning your words, but I'm witnessing to those words and honoring those words. Yeah, see you, Dave. So.
Oh, I'm waiting to Josh, sorry.
Okay, did Josh want to say something? I can't see Josh.
I'm just saying goodbye. Thank you guys for a great Saturday. Cheers.
Okay, see you, Josh. I talked to Josh about this a little bit too, with going through, and Glenn about going through with the videos and stuff. So I think of part of the responsibility of leadership is knowing what's next. So if we're going to be our own little leaders and be agile teams of one until we make it agile teams bigger than one, you should have that idea of what's next, or what stage you're at in your work. So the stage I'm at is trying maybe a method where not only do I extract the gems, but I plan a conversation to continue if it's important enough. So before I put my time into, I've asked before if anybody had any gems that they wanted to have me extract. Never got any feedback. So maybe if I put it in such a way that I contact the people, find the gem I'm interested in understanding, contacting the people involved and saying, do you think it'd be a good idea to build a thread out of this? And there's a good one from a couple of Sundays ago, or last Sunday, where Sam and Doug were disagreeing well, or could disagree better, or agreeing on some things. And I think it was some fundamental stuff about what the people who are driving this space are talking about. So, you know, it was kind of almost interesting that Doug was kind of looking down and Sam's kind of looking up. So I put them in a juxtaposed position. So it looks like, you know, Doug's God and Sam's asking the questions, and because it's Doug's show, right? So please, Doug, explain to me, you know, something like that could be produced and could be interesting to continue on. I even think of a little bit of soundtracks to try to, you know, give it that professional punctuation of media. Sound and media go very much side by side. You put a soundtrack behind something, it changes to something. If you've done any film work or know about that. So, you know, I'd like to do that, but I don't want to put any effort in. So I said it to Doug, I said it to Sam, maybe we can, I can put out a little sample so you can see what I mean. And something I'm hesitating to do is to actually comment on them. Like, I don't want to break the flow of David's beautiful message, especially for all the people that are really, you know, focused in on it. And then I go, wait, what do you mean by that word? Like, that kind of just breaks the flow, right? But I could I could go back and stop you, pause you and say, okay, now, David, what did you mean by this specifically? Because I'm sure maybe I agree, maybe I don't agree, maybe it doesn't matter. But I was confused when you said this, and then go on to something else. And then you'll get feedback on things that you say that make a lot of sense to you that might confuse other people. And that's because I do believe the conversation is important. It's the work is going to start once the conversation gets good, once it actually follows that agile type of process where you're actually getting some kind of iteration. And I think you get that from starting as an agile team of one in this group and building out, because I don't think you can assume the we is going to do anything. Go ahead, David. I don't see what you have there. I have a small screen.
That's just for Barry. He said, bear witness on bearing witness. And I said, observe the observer, and just step away from the I-ness to the isness of everything. Like justice is, an analogy of just isness. Sorry, I didn't want to disrupt your flow, Colin. I was just.
Yeah,
No,
just
no,
wanted
that
to
was
say
fine.
that concept comes from Mary Catherine Bateson and Nora Bateson. They both echoed it very prominently in their writings, including Nora just a week or so ago on Facebook. That's where it comes from.
And I think another important thing you said today, David, was that you're not a dogmatic spiritual person. And I think that's about the only thing that ruins relationships, because sooner or later they come to an impasse. And then it's not through logic, it's just through pure will of some sort, or following some tradition or whatever, without actually understanding why, perhaps, or just knowing and trusting it's better, and without challenging it. So the challenge is the challenge, and this is even global challenges. So if we don't know how to challenge each other kindly to be better understood, because some of us might be preaching something that is way off in crazy land, and after challenging it enough, you might realize that that does sound crazy. I should state that differently, because I don't know. I think that there's certain people who are susceptible to spiritual talking, and there's other people like me that appreciates art for what it is, but I don't need to go that extra mile because I think I'm already full. Like I've already, some people who are empty, they may need to fill up, and they're searching for this thing. So spiritually, I'm okay that I'm an atheist, right? I'm hooked into the human thing. That's the humanism, right? Atheism gives me nothing, but humanism gives me that, whatever you might want to call spirituality, and my interest, my art. That's another angle of my spirituality. I might not like country music, so if we decide to build a music hall in the middle of our community and it's always country music, I might not go. Right? So that's the constant problem of the world. I might not like onions. So every time they put onions in, I got to pick them out. Or, that's coexisting. You can't just have an onion, non-onion soup. So when you said you weren't spiritual, that really helped me say, he's really using a lot. And Joel did the same thing. He explained who God was. And then when he was done, I said, well, it looks like you believe in the same God I do. I just don't choose to call it God. I call it the universe, So that's stuff that you could follow up on, but it's not well done in the moment in this space. So holding space here, I think, needs that extra layer of retrospective and within the thread of the individual whose story it is, not within, the group, and I think Sam's great to bring back those threads, and he had a list of them today. So he showed it. So I think respecting those threads in a better way is the vision I see in understanding. Anyway, I've talked too much, and I'm not going to do much unless I get feedback much with this group. So I've got to find a way to get that feedback loop going, or otherwise I'm just talking to a group of one.
Colin, if you want feedback, I'll give you a little bit of feedback. And that is just a little bit on some of the recent, I would say maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks worth of videos. I've been time tagging them in YouTube for times that I've actually expressed something that I actually thought, okay, I'd like to keep this as a reference to how I say something.
Yeah, I saw that. That's good.
So those might be something you might want to review, because if you're looking for people to say, hey, this might be a gem, that's the closest I would come to doing that. Okay. You're on mute, by the way.
I said, which of the ones that you've tagged would you want to follow up the most would be the question I would ask. Not that
I haven't tagged that
all
many. If you see one, it's one that I thought was worthy for me to find again.
Yeah, I did see one where you were commenting halfway through, and I think I could start some on my own, and then maybe that would inspire other people to say, oh, we should do that with, so maybe just prime the pump. I think that's some of the faults I make, is not priming the pump anymore.
Okay. Anybody else want to check out?
Can I add something to my checkout? It's about the maths and physical reality, because in physical reality we could go to the Planck length and not beyond it, or to absolute zero but not beyond it. Actually, some scientists believe you can't reach absolute zero. But in the physical world, you can move towards an object, and if you stop at the halfway point and divide the remaining space and then do that again, you keep repeating that and never reach the destination. It's infinite. Infinite. So maths doesn't do that in the physical world, only in the mathematical world. Over.
Okay, so I got triggered there, okay? Like some people will say, hey, everything is frequency, like Tesla says that. Or some people say, oh, everything is consciousness. And then I hear people say everything is geometry. It's like, come on, it's all true. And yet, so, take the next step, What is the implication? Yes, it is all geometry, but geometry also has topology. It also has complex spaces. It also has roots. It also has, a number of other really fascinating things that I never see brought up when people say, oh, the universe is just geometry. And I really wanted to say this to Joel, but he's unfortunately gone already. So I really want to understand what people say. Glenn has also been one that has said, he sees things in geometry terms, right? So he's drawn all these diagrams, and they're fine. But I just want to know, so what was the connection they're looking for me to make when they say that? Because like I said, my dad is a geometer. He's a professional mathematician. He understands a lot, and I've picked up a little bit from him, but I don't know that we're saying the same thing ever. So that's what I'm really trying to lead into.
And that's where I tried.
And then Colin had his finger up.
Yeah, just to what you were saying quickly, that's what the game of discernment is about, is like a pre-thing to get your definitions down so that you can go ahead and comment in a way that you understand. So whether you, Dictopedia is one for the world, yes. But I think it does need to be individual in a lot of cases that I'm thinking about. That doesn't make yours any less valuable.
David?
I can help with that. Well, not help with it, but you spoke about spirituality and that you can accept that there's a universe. We have a fun exercise where we call each other Bob all day, and everything Bob or Brenda, and we go between that and we just go Bob, and then you get 5 people helping you. It's great. It's like speaking to the universe. It's like speaking to whatever you wish it to be. And if you refer to everything as Bob, you get an overall idea of how ludicrous our separation is. Sam, you mentioned constant. You mentioned frequency, right? You said there's this aspect of it, there's this aspect of it, and this aspect of it. So if everything that there is has frequency, and it's this and it's this, and we see it as this, that, and the other, and everybody has issue with the translation, and that's basically it, the communication. Surely if it's all frequency, then it's constant. So it goes from noise to harmony. When you see that, it's a constancy. And that's flow. It's flowful. That's all it really needs to be. That's all we need to know. So when you say mapping, or Sam says something else, this is a bearing of the soul, of the spirit. This is a puking in the bucket. And for any of us not to honor that, and no. How can someone dishonor someone else's puke or someone else's frequency in a constancy where we're all ascending? And not ascending as in up and down, ascending as in within and throughout. And with that, it's gratitude of every moment on the journey, because we reach a horizon to see the next vista. We're reaching each other's horizons constantly. And that's where the beauty is, you see. In permaculture, it's the margins that are the best part. Where the water and the land meet, you get amphibians. But imagine that we're dropping pebbles. Every word we speak is a pebble in the pond, in this beautiful mill pond. And these Colin and I's ripples cross and Alex and I's cross, they go on and cross everybody else's ripples as well, so that this creates this fraternity, not a fraternity, a fraternity. And this is spirals of energy coming in, going out. It's the dual torus with a flow through the center from above and from.
Allow me to interrupt just for a second. As you know, this is the after show, and you interrupted me, so I think it's fair game, and I like that. When you say Alex's ripple and all of our ripples together, that's true, but that's a different view than me keeping my stone out like I'm throwing it in right now. But if I would have kept my stone out, your ripples would have been going smooth still, right? So I'm saying maybe I can allow your ripples to go smooth, and at the same time, because of the magic of digital technology, I can wind it back if it's powerful enough and interrupt in a way that I hope you're going to answer me the question I had, which is kind of what I'm asking. If I'm going to put my time into that, can I say like, well, I would like to follow up on our discussion today. Can I do a response video? And would you be interested in helping me, make a few nodes of that response video? Which I think is just another way of saying the same stuff a different way, but it's really relative to the context of what's here. And do we let the guy keep going smooth, knowing that 3 people might be wanting to reply through digital technology? So, you could get a lot of feedback. You see that on YouTube all the time with the response videos, right? But how do we do it positively? And a really good point about the puke. The puke is something I think it's disagreeing well, but it's almost expecting there to be triggers. And that's what this group is looking at too. How do we disagree well and prepare for the triggers? So I'll just say that, because when you say that the ripples all come together, sometimes it's about not doing that. But how can you do it and not do it at the same time? The trick is a response video.
Guys, I'm going to go. It is now 1:21. So thank you very much. Colin, I will chat to you about that further at a later stage. That would be good. And I will see you all the same time next week. Bye for now, guys. Take care.